Good morning, dear children. Welcome to our English class. Today we are moving to the story. Let's see how this story begins. This story teaches us two concepts. The bond of human relations are to be very strong. The human relations are very strong. Number two, Indian culture and values. These are the two concepts we are going to get from this story. The story begins with the meeting of the narrator and Maggie. The first meeting happened in a vegetarian hotel in London Street. In the first meeting itself, they developed a mutual interest. They wanted to know the identity of each other with unknown reasons. As the story develops, you can see there is a reason for their meeting. Listen this point. Their first meeting happened in a vegetarian hotel in London Street. In that first meeting itself, they developed a mutual interest between the narrator and Maggie. What is that mutual interest? They wanted to know the identity of each other with an unknown reason. In the first meeting itself, they wanted to know the identity of each other. That developed an unknown interest in them to get in touch. As the story develops, we can see there is a reason for their meeting. So whatever things happen in our life, there is a reason behind it. Here in this story, the narrator and Maggie, they meet in a vegetarian hotel in London Street. At the first meeting itself, they developed a mutual interest in between. But as the story progresses, we can see why this meeting happened there. The narrator is a good observant. He realized that Maggie is hailing from a poor family from her clothes and bad expression in her eyes. This narrator is a good observant. He understands very quickly that she is coming from a very poor family. The sad expression in her eyes and her outfit tells she's coming from a poor background. Moreover, the waitress in the restaurant explained that Maggie used to come there only on Saturdays. Why? Saturdays were her paid days. She couldn't afford a lunch on other days. She used to have lunch only on Saturdays. The reason is Saturdays her payday. So this is the information passed by the waitress. From this, narrator realized that she is coming from a poor background. So how narrator realized she is coming from a poor family or poor background? He is a good observant. The Maggie's outfit and her sad expression in the eyes, plus the waitress' explanation that she used to come there only on Saturdays, as Saturdays are her paydays. She couldn't afford a lunch on other days. Maggie works as a typist and her mother bakes cakes to sell on. So the narrator felt a lot of sympathy for her and her mother. There the story begins. Okay? So I hope you understand what are the two concepts. Where the first meeting of Maggie and the narrator happened, and what happened in their first meeting in that hotel. How do you know narrator is a good observant? Okay, think about it. So this is the opening part of this story. Okay?
Another question which raises in our mind is why Maggie and her mother felt an attraction to this Indian, our narrator? The main reason is that the narrator is an Indian. Why they felt an attraction to India? Yes, Maggie's brother Frank had gone to India as he was a soldier in the military service. Gupta once went to Maggie's house to meet her mother. Mother was anxious to know about India because she had heard that India was a dangerous place to live in, a land of superstitions, vegetarians, full of tigers, snakes, fever, and yogis. So Maggie and her mother had some kind of knowledge about India. They heard something about India and they just want to make a clarification about all these things to our narrator. So she believed that the Indians had the rare power to see a person living in a distant land by gazing at a crystal ring which was brought by Frank. So, superstitions are there in every country. Even though it is England, there is no scarcity for superstition. Maggie and mother wanted him to look into that crystal ring and see how Frank was. And there was no information for several months, and Maggie and her mother was worried. Gupta told them that he didn't possess such a supernatural power.
It was nearly 1 o'clock and he was feeling extremely hungry, so he made his way to a vegetarian restaurant. From there he happens to meet a young English girl named Maggie.
Can I have your order, sir?
I would like to have this.
Thank you, sir.
His attention was drawn to a table not far away from him. A young English girl was sitting there. She has been watching him since he sat there. She looks 13 or 14. Please, miss. Can you tell me if the gentleman is an Indian?
I think so.
Does he come here all the time?
Perhaps not. I did not recall having seen him before.
Thank you.
Do you know the girl who was sitting there?
No, sir. I do not know her, to speak of. I have noticed she has lunch here on Saturday.
Doesn't she come on other days?
I never see her on other days.
Have you any idea who she is?
Perhaps. She works in a nearby shop.
How do you know?
Saturday is payday. That is when she comes. On other days, she may not be able to afford lunch. Perhaps, she does not earn very much.
He was moved by what the waitress said. He was so curious about that girl. So many questions raised in his head. Who was the child? Why had she inquired about him? Was some mystery the cause of her interest?
Who was the child? Why had she inquired about me? Was some mystery the cause of her interest? Why? What was the matter? Her interest in me aroused my interest in her.
On Sunday, all the shops are closed. So, he went to look for her, but he found no trace of her. He saw her sitting at the same table. He went towards her.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. They slowly started to talk. Are you Indian?
Yes.
Excuse me. Are you vegetarian?
Why do you ask?
I have heard that most Indians are vegetarians.
How is it that you know anything about India?
My elder brother is in India. He is a soldier.
I am not much of a vegetarian, but I enjoy a vegetarian meal.
Seems like her only guardian was this elder brother. She lived with her widowed mother.
Do you hear from your brother?
We had not had a letter from him long time. My mother is very worried. People tell her that India is full of tigers and snakes and fevers. She is afraid something had happened to him. Is it true, sir? That India is full of tigers and snakes and fevers?
No. How could people live there if it were?
Mother says she would like to ask an Indian about this. So, her mother wanted him to see her, but she did not have the courage to ask him.
Will you introduce me to your mother sometime? Would you like me to accompany you to home?
Thank you ever so much. It is so kind of you. Can you come now?
With pleasure.
If it will not interfere with anything else.
No. Not at all. This afternoon is my own. May I know your name?
My name is Alice Margaret Clifford.
Do you come this way often?
Yes. I work as a typist in the civil service stores. I come home this way. Today is Saturday. So, I am off early.
Should I call you Miss Clifford or Alice?
I am not grown up yet. I am usually called Maggie.
Are you anxious to grow up?
Yes.
Tell me why?
When I grow up, I shall be paid more for my work. My mother is old.
Is the work you do to your liking?
No. The work is very mechanical. I want work that will make me use my head. Brain work. Like the work of a secretary. They crossed the bridge and arrived in Lambeth. It is a poor neighborhood. If I ever become a secretary, I shall take mother away from here.
Did your father call you Maggie or Magsy?
When he was very affectionate, he called me Magsy. How did you know?
Yes, yes. We are Indians. You know. We know about future and all kinds of magic.
That is what I have heard.
Indeed? What have you heard?
I have heard that there are many people in India who have occult powers. They are called yogis. But you are not a yogi.
How do you know that I am not a yogi? Maggie?
Yogis do not eat meat.
Is that why you asked me in the beginning whether I am vegetarian or not?
They had reached a narrow doorway. Maggie took a thin latchkey out of her pocket and opened the door. And entered and said, "Please come in." Maggie closed the door. She went to the foot of the stairs and, raising her voice a little, called, "Maggie, mother, where are you?"
I am in the kitchen, child.
Do you mind?
Not in the least. Come on.
Mother. An Indian gentleman has come to see you.
Where is he?
This is Mr. Gupta. Mother. And Mr. Gupta, this is my mother.
How do you do?
Excuse me. My hands are covered with flour. Today is Saturday. I am making cake. People will come to buy them this evening. They'll be sold on the streets tonight. This is the way we make our living.
Saturday night is a time of festivity in poor neighborhoods. The streets are more crowded. Saturday is the day the poor are able to spend a little, for they receive their weekly wages. Ingredients for making cake: flour, sugar, fat, raisins, eggs.
Sitting in such a poor kitchen will not be very pleasant for you, will it? I have almost finished the work. Maggie, take him into the sitting room. I will come in a minute.
No. No. I can sit here well enough. The cakes you make are nice one, I must say.
What kind of a country is India, sir?
A beautiful country.
Safe to live in?
Certainly. But not cold like this country. It is somewhat hot.
Aren't there too many snakes and tigers? Don't they kill people?
Don't believe that. Snakes and tigers keeps to the jungles. They get killed themselves if they come close to places where people live.
And fevers?
In some places in India, there is more fever than in other. It is neither the same everywhere nor the same all the year around.
My son is in the Punjab. He is a soldier. What kind of place is the Punjab?
Punjab is a fine place. There's little fever there. It are very healthy.
I am glad to hear it.
He talked about India. Mrs. Clifford showed him a photograph of her son.
He is my son. His name is Francis. We call him as Frank.
Maggie brought out a book of pictures he had sent her to her birthday. There were so many pictures of Simla and the surrounding mountain country. It was written as, "To Maggie, on her birthday, from her loving brother Frank."
Maggie, show Mr. Gupta the ring.
Has your brother sent you a ring? Let me see, what kind of ring is it?
It is a magic ring. A yogi gave it to Frank. Can you see the past and the future in it? He had heard a lot about crystal gazing. A crystal was set in the ring. He took it up and examined.
When Frank sent the ring, he wrote that if you concentrate on a distant person as you gaze into it, you will be able to see him and what he is doing. This what the yogi told Frank. Maggie and I have concentrated upon it, again and again. Because we have not had any news of Frank for a long time. But we have not been able to see anything. Why don't you try? You are a Hindu. You may be able to do it.
He realized that superstition was not confined to India. He did not have the heart to tell the mother and daughter that the ring was nothing much, brass with a piece of ordinary glass stuck into it.
I cannot see anything.
So let's continue more about this story in our next video. Thank you.